how impactful Lizzo was for a very specific time period. I would call it the turn of the decade. You can see back in 2020 when she won Best New Artist at the iHeartRadio Music Awards, and her image at the time was that of somebody who was just nice. She wanted people to feel good about themselves. Body positivity was a very large part of her brand, which she later transitioned into body neutrality.
Thank you to all of the fans who supported me and discovered me and made this last year unforgettable.
She had an authenticity to her, I mean, as much as a massive global pop star can, and it was fairly refreshing at the time, yes. One of her biggest tracks was Good As Hell, which is literally just a song about feeling good as hell. As you see, this was 10 years ago. She frequently featured messages of self-acceptance in her music as well, showcasing a variety of diverse dancers, too. I was almost tempted to just skip past my intro of Lizzo because in my mind, like, everyone knows this, but then I remind myself I'm actually turning 28 in less than 2 months. I'm not the youngest person on YouTube, and it actually is very possible to have never really meaningfully heard of Lizzo or be familiar with her peak in any way, shape, or form. So let's just throw that out there. I mostly bring up what her image was like at the time to illustrate how much the sexual harassment lawsuit rocked her image, because it seemed antithetical almost to everything that she stood for. So this is an article from 2023 when this occurred. Lizzo sued by backup dancers for sexual harassment and creating hostile work environment. Before we look at the details, this really spiraled into a story of, oh my gosh, Lizzo, body positivity plus feel-good queen, was being mean to people, abusing them, and also being fatphobic. So I would like to give a trigger warning for sexual harassment. As per NME, the alleged incident of sexual harassment mentioned supposedly took place in a strip club in Amsterdam, where they, being the backup dancers who sued her, visited the show earlier this year. The dancers claim Lizzo allegedly bullied one of them into touching a nude performer, to the point where she led a chant goading her into doing so until she eventually gave in, despite declining multiple times. The suit states that Lizzo began inviting cast members to take turns touching the nude performers, catching dildos launched from the performers' private parts, and eating bananas protruding from the performers' private parts. Continuing, Lizzo then turned her attention onto Miss Davis and began pressuring her to touch one of the nude women in an intimate way. It was a story as per the allegations of being pressured into an environment where you're being asked to do sexual acts by your boss in this place where it seems normal enough, but like the whole context of them working for Lizzo is obviously why they are framing this as harassment, which I would agree with if this is what happens. It would be textbook sexual harassment. Plaintiffs were aghast with how little regard Lizzo showed for the bodily autonomy of her employees and those around her, especially in the presence of many people whom she employed. And then they also talk a little bit about the alleged fatphobia of Lizzo calling attention to one of the performers' weight, etc. Lizzo hasn't necessarily said much about the actual sexual harassment of it all, or what she has isn't great. A lot of this is more so her shooting down the claims of fatphobia and trying to say, my image was real, I wasn't thinking that, but I do think you should know exactly what was being alleged and what was said. Lizzo responds to sexual harassment lawsuit. This was in 2023. False allegations and sensationalized stories. In a statement posted Thursday to her Twitter account, she said that the allegations were, quote, as unbelievable as they sound and too outrageous to not be addressed. Ooh, we're getting into some tricky territory here. Okay. Even in cases where someone may even be falsely accused, or allegations might actually be false, I find the way a lot of people respond to allegations to be not great. When you come in hot and you're just like, these people sound crazy, and they are crazy. This is unbelievable. Why would I ever... I don't think that's super useful in the grander context of how we should meet allegations coming from anybody, true or otherwise. Focusing on the supposed unbelievability of them just kind of, I don't know, I find it icky. I am not the villain that people and the media have portrayed me to be these last few days. I'm very open with my sexuality and expressing myself, but I cannot accept or allow people to use that openness to make me out to be something I'm not. She pointed out the claims of calling attention to a dancer's weight gain and said, there's nothing I take more seriously than the respect we deserve as women in the world. I know what it feels like to be body shamed on a daily basis and would absolutely never criticize or terminate an employee because of their weight. But it says right here, in her statement on Thursday, Lizzo did not address the lawsuit's individual accusations, but said they were sensationalized stories and that they're coming from former employees who have already publicly admitted that they were told their behavior on tour was inappropriate and unprofessional. And she broadly defended herself against what she called an attack on her ethic, morals, and respectfulness. As an artist, I've always been very passionate about what I do, never my intention to make anyone feel uncomfortable or like they aren't valued as an important part of the team. From my perspective, unless I am missing it, which I'm very much open to, I don't even think Lizzo has meaningfully responded
Hello,
to
hello
the sexual
everyone.
harassment claims, which obviously I would understand with there being an ongoing case. But she does have defenders who like to say,
I'm currently
actually, all of
watching
these claims are dropped. The harassment was
D'Angelo
dropped. So there's no proof that this is true.
on a
And
Lizzo
proof to
piece,
us that this is
so
true. But
I was
it's not true that these sexual
behind on
harassment
this.
claims are dropped. In fact, she was sued a second time. Lizzo sued by another ex-employee over bullying and harassment claims, and these were dropped. But like, this isn't the same thing that she was initially responding to that's still happening. Another thing is individual parts of that initial lawsuit have been dropped, but again, still not these most serious claims. From my perspective, Lizzo has mostly been able to avoid addressing the elephants in the room by fixating on the claims of fatphobia. There is this very, and I do mean very, long interview with Lizzo from the end of last year that kind of talks about where she's at, how she responded to a lot of this, and Chad, I'm going to be quite honest with you, we're not about to read all of this, but I think the part that's relevant will be right around here. A few former collaborators spoke out in support of the dancers, citing their own negative experiences working with Lizzo. A documentarian revealed she had dropped out of a project with Lizzo in 2019 because she was treated with such disrespect. Op-eds and think pieces questioned how her empire of positivity could harbor such toxicity. People came to her defense. 18 staffers, including a number of dancers, signed declarations disputing many of the claims made against her. A few weeks later, before she was set to receive the Quincy Jones Humanitarian Award at the Black Music Action Gala, that's when that second lawsuit hit, and Lizzo went on stage and made a tearful speech promising that despite her current situation, she was going to, quote, continue to put on and represent and create safe spaces for black fat women because that's what the F I do. It is my purpose and it is an honor. The allegation that almost undid her wasn't sexual harassment or accusations of a hostile work environment. It's that anyone would believe she had fat shamed someone, that anyone would think everything she had been living and embodying was performative and for profit. How can any of that be performative and fake when it was my actual life? Who can keep that facade up for years? For people to say it's beneficial to be body positive when that wasn't even the trend? I made it the trend. I'm one of the ones who forged it. That's kind of Lizzo's stance. Again, this is literally my biased view, but it's kind of a lawsuit that's like, hey, you were sexually harassing your employees and also being fatphobic. And Lizzo's like, first of all, I'm not fatphobic, so I just don't think any of this has been a great response. And in a incredibly strange video posted last year shortly before Christmas, Lizzo gave what I believe is one of the most recent updates about this case, which has been going on since 2023. So she said, the fat shaming claims against me have been officially dropped by my accusers. They conceded it had no merit in court. There was no evidence that I fired them because they gained weight, because it never happened. Now, the truth is finally out, and it's like, the truth about what, Lizzo? I think there's still a major part of this case ongoing. They weren't fired for gaining weight, they were fired for taking a private recording of me without my consent and sending it off to my ex-employees. I've never fired an employee for gaining weight, I've only encouraged and supported people with bigger bodies and shared my platform with them. This claim has haunted me since the day it came out. It's been devastating to suffer through this in silence, but I let my lawyers lead, and I'm so grateful for this victory. I can't stress this enough. She hasn't won anything. This is kind of like being at halftime during a sports game and you're 1 point in the lead and you're like, we basically won. Did you though? Also, I don't really know sports, so that analogy might have made no sense, but I feel as though you understand me. I am still in a legal battle. I am not settling. I will be fighting every single claim until the truth is out. And it's really those every single claims that are doing some heavy lifting here. If you were to take a look at the comments on this post of hers, which went pretty viral on TikTok, and they're just so interesting. The fact that people turned on you so fast is crazy. The truth won't be reported like the accusations. Trust me, we all knew the claims were absurd. She just hasn't cleared anything dog. I'm going to move on from the whole lawsuit thing, but just leave it here. Lizzo celebrates as fat-shaming claims are dismissed, which is absolutely true, but as the BBC points out, while those specific allegations have been dropped, the case against Lizzo and her production company will continue over claims that the three dancers were subject to sexual harassment. I personally feel that this singular incident has done more to her brand over such an extended period of time than like anything else she could have done. Because whereas people might have been dropping her over the fat phobia without knowing whether it happened or not, just the absolute refusal to acknowledge the sexual harassment part of this, whether it's for legal reasons or not, it just comes across so poorly. And I find a lot of her framing of this as some sort of unmerited attack against her brand to be disingenuous, when truthfully it has just been multiple women coming forward and saying we felt abused in this environment. Despite me sort of not thinking that this was a good response in any way, shape, or form, it was good enough for Lizzo because she followed all of this up with her My Face Hurts from Smiling mixtape. Yes, dropped in the middle of an ongoing sexual harassment lawsuit in June of last year. I'm literally being so serious right now. And she sort of took the stance, if you will, on this album, which I did listen to at the time because I thought, like, this can't be what it seems like on the surface. Basically, just like, well, I'm still Lizzo. And everybody who's mad at me is mad at me for no reason, and I'm just gonna have fun. She had like a bunch of features and so much, like, I don't want to use the word butthurt, but I can't really think of a more logical term. She was so mad on this album while trying to seem unbothered. I think it's probably best that we don't really dive too deeply into that. She followed it up, by the way, with some sort of deluxe/double called My Face Still Hurts from Smiling. That wasn't a good look. If I had to describe how it felt to like listen to that album, you know that one meme of that girl where she's crying and then she's like, ah. It was like this, but in album format. It wasn't a great mixtape experience for me, I won't lie. But the mixtape was nothing but a teaser. Finally, her album dropped just a couple of weeks ago, and the world was graced earlier this month with, I'm not going to say the name of the album, but yeah, we get the point. The 5th studio album by American singer and rapper Lizzo. I don't know why I did this, but I listened to it. I think maybe part of me just thought, like, it can't be as bad as it seems. The underperformance of this album is literally, like, more than you could have even expected. It barely sold anything. So when I found this out, ironically, this is what made me want to listen to the album, because I was like, it has to at least be good music, right? Like, the things that Lizzo was doing, blowing up for in 2019, this was good music, surely. Chat, I don't think it's really that great. The project clocks in at a trim 35 minutes, which still felt kind of long towards the end there. But it opens with a track called A Toast, which I could literally only describe as like Disney villain music. We're opening with these dramatic violins, and she starts giving like this haunting, spooky, oh, who's the real villain type Here's a Toast to the ones who hurt me most. Which, by the way, actually kind of a good line if this was MySpace in the 2000s, but like, I just think that was a terrible choice, because it literally framed the entire rest of the album through this bitter lens, and I was just like, bro, she's mad. Everything she's gonna say after this, she's just mad as hell, still. Track 2, I would say, is like a fittingly empty sounding song about happiness. It's like a funk number, it's supposedly upbeat, but I swear to God, it doesn't even sound happy. I also couldn't help but think about Happy by Pharrell for some reason, and that is just problematic in and of itself. That's not Lizzo's fault. I just have heard that song one too many times. The issues that arose, I feel, with this mix of sounding a little bit empty from a production standpoint, sadly kind of were happening across the entire album. Lizzo has traditionally had really nice arrangements in her tracks. This was just sparse in a way that didn't feel like it was serving anything. It kind of made the tracks blend together. They were a little bit forgettable, even when they weren't terrible, like the opener. But I swear to God, it reminded me of Happy by Pharrell, and that's just, I have to move on. So, track 3, I was almost rocking with it until we got to the bridge and the key change, and I was like, I'm tired of the 80s revival. I'm sorry, listen, I know that 80s inspired pop music is a vibe. I know it has a certain feeling, it's fun, but I would like to just move on from this narrative, actually. It's good, it's fine, It's okay. It's music that exists at least between this song, which is just kind of like a love at first sight song, and the last song, which is just kind of like an I feel good song. She's not leading into the themes of like revenge and everyone hates me, so I wasn't hating anything just yet. Moving out of my 80s dissatisfaction into the next track, which is the title track. The world calls me a B word, but I'm actually so many of these other things. Someone said the title track isn't even original. Oh yeah, and it's mostly a cover of a song called that already exists, by the way. Shout out Meredith Brooks. I would have thought that between the release of that original and this one, you maybe could have like zhuzhed it up a little, but that's okay. I would chuck this under like Katy Perry territory. It's like, yes, broadly, it's totally a woman's world, and this is a good angle to take, just when it's coming from somebody who appears to be doing things that are actually pretty bad, counterproductive for women in general, aka brushing over these allegations, supporting Chris Brown, as we're gonna get to in a second. It feels off. Also, there's a line in here that kind of just summarizes how surface level is this. She's a B, and she says, you mean boss? I hope this doesn't sound crazy if I say, but like, it's not the 2010s anymore, dog. We gotta go a little bit deeper than this level of empowerment, in my opinion. The next track would be called She Stole My Man, and oh, I hate to say it, I hated this one. It's like this weird sort of rock number, and you know, in any other context, if you told me Lizzo was doing her take on rock music, I think I would have been excited, but then I heard it and I just went back to sleep. Also, these lyrics, dog, she stole my man, I hate that forever. I'm like, it is giving middle school. I can't lie, okay, I could lie, but I choose not to. It's more fun to be messy. Moving on, whose hair is this? I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually like this track. Listen, I'm not gonna sit here in front. I am just a sucker for a good, soulful R&B ballad, and frankly, that's exactly what this is, especially when it has some storytelling elements. And, you know, despite all of the nonsense, the mess, and the things she should be criticized for, Lizzo can still sing the hell out of an R&B ballad, okay? But, like, I don't want to listen to it because it's Lizzo. And that's a sad problem that I run into with a lot of people's music, where I'm just like, oh, you're so talented, good for you. Closest to the one. We've got the next track, which would be Little Black Cats. And I'm not gonna lie, I think because my brain heard one good song that I actually liked, I just like stopped listening. I was trying to listen to the rest of it, but by the time we got to the end, we were 20 minutes in, and I was just like, this album is starting to feel long, it's starting to feel samey. I think I heard it 4 other times. Okay, it's just fine. Moving on from that, which was sort of like a song about being superstitious or whatever, we get to Sexy Ladies. That is where we start getting into territory of like, uh-oh, guys, I think she's responding to the allegations. The majority of the track is just kind of like this upbeat, sort of banger energy vibe. Same story, different day. But she says, why would I ever cry, baby? I've been there. My Venus and Gemini, queen of the unbothered. Oh, how I sleep at night in my satin Gautier. And between this song and the next song, I would say this is the closest thing that we get to a look into Lizzo's headspace. So she's unbothered now, guys. She's been sad, she's been mad, and now she just kind of doesn't care anymore because she knows that she's that girl. Again, we have another upbeat one. This will be one of those body positivity fingers. But in the middle of singing a song about how like other people should, I don't know, be proud of themselves, you have to take a moment to have this weird audio play in the middle which says, somebody says that Cat Williams, she pulled that from a Cat Williams stand-up. If you didn't catch that, they came after Lizzo, and she's unproblematic, and they don't give an F. You can be fat, you can be a woman, I'm cleaning that up a little bit, but you can't be a fat black woman, which, first of all, like, on some level, yes, misogynoir and fat phobia have played an inextricably insidious part in the way all of this has played out and been talked about, and even, yes, in Lizzo's declining popularity.
Thank you for the likes.
Really never would have moved the needle on many other people's careers. However, I just think asserting that this is actually why people are coming for you.
I'm going to
Isn't true, and she's just not
look
even
at some
remotely unproblematic.
to have some ideas because I
Beyond
need to
the
make an animation
allegations,
here
over the years,
and I
there's
don't
been
know what to do.
multiple things
So
here and there,
yeah.
but for sure, the most egregious has to be Lizzo is facing criticism. This would be 2021 after calling Chris Brown her quote favorite person and asking the singer for a photo. This was not taken out of context. This isn't missing anything. This has followed her around for a while at this point, and I don't really think she's offered anything that would make it better. In fact, as part of the promo for the album we're listening to right now, she posted this incredibly weird video in which she captioned it, "I can't believe Chris Brown said this." And she took a video where Chris Brown was saying like weird things about Zara Larsson and redid it like this.
If you're not my fan, I don't want you to listen to my shit. Go listen to my pre-order Lizzo's new album, bitch, coming out June 5th. Let's talk.
Using Chris Brown to promote your album in the year of our Lord 2026 while simultaneously saying I'm unproblematic and people came for me for no reason, I simply must move on. So there's only 3 tracks left on the album, which even though I've literally played mere seconds from it here in an attempt to not get hit with copyright, I find myself tiring of already, so I'll just go ahead and make my complaints pretty clear. On the next track, which is called Too Nice, I am sad because it is the only track on the album, unless I missed something, where you get a flute performance, and it's just stuck at the end of a half-baked, barely 2-minute banger. What happened to the flute? I'm not listening to this album ever again after today, but come on, Lizzo. Something for your flute fans. And then, like a crime, I thought that Too Nice sounded unfinished. This one literally just sounds like an acoustic demo, almost like she didn't even have the lyrics for this finished. So it's this weird, I almost want to say Latin-inspired guitar ballad. Not weird because it's Latin-inspired, just because it sounds terrible. And this might be one of the few times that I've actually found Lizzo's voice to be grating, which is not something I thought I would say about her. And then you get to the bridge, and I'm like, as much as I like it when people just start making vocalizations instead of singing words, you genuinely ran out of lyrics for this one. Sure, Lizzo. I nod my way onto the final track, Good Morning. And at this point, I had finally settled on an emotion because this album was mostly just making me feel nothing. But by the time I got to the final track, I was just kind of sad. I'm not gonna lie. Like, this is another one that's supposed to be positive. It's supposed to be uplifting. But something about it just sounds kind of tortured and empty in a way that is deeply unsettling to me.
You got a purpose, yeah, you got something to do.
I don't know, man. It just wasn't a very good album. And that certainly has to play a part into why it was the lowest performing album. I almost want to say I've seen all year. Like, surely people have undersold this, but nobody who is as popular as Lizzo. Lizzo's new album didn't even chart. What happened? This wasn't like, oh man, she was all the way at the bottom. No. Her album sold 2,650 copies in its first week. I don't think it's possible for me to overstate how low of a number this is for somebody of Lizzo's caliber. Small artists routinely can sell more than 2,600 copies of an album. It doesn't take much to shock me. If you told me she debuted at number 199 on the Billboard 200, I would have been surprised, but she didn't even touch the chart, actually. Within its first week, the album sold 2.6 thousand and racked up just under 2.7 million on-demand streams. I'm just a commentary YouTuber who has made a lot of free videos over the years, and I've gotten more than 2.7 million streams in a week on a couple of those. So I'm dead. 'Cause,
Thank you.
Even in the grand scheme of YouTube, that's really not that much. It was a lot for me, and I was really grateful, but that's because I was just some guy, not one of the most widely known and widely talked about pop stars. So in its second week, sales dropped to 600 units, streams dipped to just under 1 million. Oh no. Oh, someone in chat says she went triple cardboard. Now come on now. Anyways, obviously, when you're dealing with that, which would be a surprise to anybody, it is going to raise the question of how? How could this be possible? And Lizzo has an answer for all of us, actually. And you're never going to guess what it is. I can actually answer this Lizzo says on Twitter, responding to somebody who asked the same thing I was wondering, the industry changed so much in the last 3 years because streaming replaced radio, and I was a radio darling. That's how my fans discovered my music. Not to mention the very obvious and public attack on my career changed things. But I'm out here doing my absolute best, and you can't knock me for that. And I'm like, Lizzo, it is absolutely and obviously a thing that, yes, streaming is more important than radio at this point, and I actually kind of think that's a good thing because it is a little bit more indicative of what people do when given the choice to listen to the music they want to. And yet, if you're literally trying to convince me that this happened specifically within the last 3 years, I would have to disagree with that so hard. Just as a casual consumer of music, as a chart watcher, Lizzo, that's not
What
why
the
this
hell?
album performed the way it didn't. It feels a little bit disingenuous to me because, yeah, Lizzo was killing it on the radio, but she was also big on streaming. Her stuff was popping on TikTok all the time. I remember this very vividly. She talked about this a little bit more in this podcast appearance with the Swiftologist.
This is like some of my best stuff. I had to come to terms with the fact that not only is the music industry different in the last 3 years, and we need to talk about that. We need to talk about the radio aspect that I got my shoot out for, but it's happening and it's true.
This is not her best work. You have to know that your other songs go harder than the stuff that's on this new one. And she's still not right about the radio thing, in my opinion. Maybe there's somebody who knows more than me and is like, actually, D'Angelo Lizzo is exactly correct. You're uninformed, but I will believe it when I see it. If you want an update on the lawsuit, actually, this one's fairly recent. It's from May of this year. Lizzo refuses to settle backup dancer's sexual harassment lawsuit. I'm not afraid of the truth, she says. So basically, yeah, that's just going to happen for as long as it does, I guess. Truthfully, people online are horrifically racist and misogynist and fatphobic towards Lizzo. And unfortunately, a lot of people have used the revelation of bad behavior on her part as an excuse to justify their hatred, which is never how we should be treating serious issues. It is just also true that Lizzo has been supported by a lot of the same people who are marginalized by the same things affecting her. And it's a lot of those people who have stepped back and have decided not to support her. There are a lot of people who are like, actually, Lizzo's image kind of meant a lot to me because it still does. I don't support the things she's doing after this. I kind of feel similarly. Just, I don't really want to listen to her anymore, even though I myself found a lot of her stuff to be pretty empowering and amazing. So I guess I would still like to acknowledge anytime Lizzo has said, like, oh, the world is being racist, she's not crazy. It's just, that's not why almost nobody supports her anymore. That's about all I have to say about Lizzo and her new album. I'm gonna try never to think about that again, and hopefully you never have to either. But yeah, I actually recorded this live right here on YouTube, where I stream quite frequently. Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. Unless, of course, I don't, in which case I'm probably just, I don't know, sleeping. But yeah, hopefully I see you in the next stream or the next video, and if not, it doesn't matter at all. Okay, bye!
ragazzo.